On May 11, 2023, officers responded to a shooting around 9:01 a.m. that occurred at the intersection of Mayo Boulevard and South I-10 Service Road in New Orleans, Louisiana. Asia Davis had been shot multiple times and was left lying in a pool of her blood on the side of the road. Asia was tragically murdered by 44-year-old Henry Talley Jr. shortly after putting her daughter on the school bus that Thursday morning. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Witnesses stated that they saw Henry and Asia engaged in a heated argument outside of an apartment complex before she was shot to death and then run over by Talley's gold SUV. "Are you really going to do this to me, Henry?" were Asia's last words before she was murdered. Within the past month leading up to her death, Asia called the police twice about domestic dispute emergencies, once on April 6 and again on April 18. Davis attempted to report alleged abuse inflicted by her boyfriend and now suspected killer, but it took police 12 hours to respond.
Well, 12 hours, that's how long dispatch records show it took New Orleans police to respond to a woman who was calling for help from a man allegedly abusing her. Good evening, everyone. I'm Cherise Gibson.
And I'm Devin Bartolotta. Asia Davis was eventually killed by that man, investigators say. And now the city council wants to know why police took so long to get to her. Eleanor Tabone has the story.
Asia Davis is one of 6 women killed in New Orleans in the span of a month. According to dispatch records, the young mother called for help, but seemingly authorities failed her.
This woman reached out twice to the New Orleans Police Department through 911 and made complaints fearing for her life.
Kenya Davis is still grieving the loss of her 28-year-old daughter, Asia Davis.
She was my child, she was my daughter.
She was apparently killed by her boyfriend, Henry Talley Jr. Our partners at NOLA.com say he shot her, then ran over her.
We barely holding on.
Twice before her death, she called 911 for help. But dispatch records show on both April 6th and April 18th, her calls were downgraded. In both occasions, it took NOPD 12 hours to respond, and both calls were marked gone on arrival. NOPD says those calls were downgraded because the suspect had left the scene and there was no threat of imminent danger. Council President JP Morrell wants to know why a domestic violence complaint is not a priority.
It is hard for us as a city to have victims and survivors take us seriously. We don't prioritize their safety by thinking a 12-hour response on 2 complaints of domestic violence is acceptable.
Just what we see in this case regarding Miss Davis. Well, she's dead now. She's dead.
Domestic violence advocate Kim Sport says there's no excuse for why it took officers that long to get to Asia.
There's a reason why we have laws that distinguish simple battery from domestic abuse battery, and that's because of the threat of imminent harm to a victim of domestic abuse.
Eleanor Tabone, Eyewitness News.
Henry Talley Jr. has been arrested and is now facing a second-degree murder charge. NOPD says when it responded 12 hours later to Asia's calls, they tried to call her and knocked on the door but didn't get a response, so they marked their call gone on arrival.
The NOPD is being scrutinized because their response times to domestic violence incidents have soared, meaning victims are left without aid for hours before police arrive. Often, as was the case with Davis, by the time a patrol car shows up the incident is long over and officers mark it up as gone on arrival, with no further actions taken. Almost 45% of all calls about domestic incidents are now marked gone on arrival. Henry Talley Jr. was previously convicted of murder for the killing of a 12-year-old boy in 1996 and received a life sentence. He was released 2 years ago after serving 25 years in prison, made possible by a Supreme Court decision regarding life sentences for juveniles. Talley was currently on parole and worked as a busboy at Galatoire's on Bourbon Street. He was arrested for the murder of Asia Davis on Wednesday, May 17. He was charged with second-degree murder and booked into the Orleans Justice Center. Asia Davis was a 28-year-old mother and healthcare professional described by her family as having a heart of gold and as being a happy person. Her family also said that she had a big heart and was always smiling, and that she never stopped aiming for greatness. She overcame a lot of obstacles in life. She had a special patience because she was a home health aide for senior citizens. She loved to work with older people. Asia was a daughter, cousin, friend, niece, and a loving mother to her 5-year-old daughter. A month ago, Asia made a social media post stating for God to please keep her here until her child is prepared for the world, because she is all her baby girl has. A few days before her murder, Asia made several social media posts that reiterated her strength and trust in God. One post stating, "Thank you God for everything, and I mean everything. The struggle, the hurt, the betrayal, the everything. God, I'm woke Father. Just redirect me at this point." We can only imagine the things that were going on behind closed doors and all of the pain that she endured leading up to her death. Asia was killed 3 days before Mother's Day, which also happens to be her daughter's 6th birthday. So, this year, on Mother's Day and her 6th birthday, a child was left to celebrate her birthday without her mother. Asia's family described her as being a very beautiful person, the life of the party, very respectful. Everyone she met just loved her. She was goofy, funny, and a very sweet person. Asia was the glue that held this now broken family together. Now the family feels as though they are barely holding on. Please keep the family in your prayers as they continue to mourn the loss of their loved one.